5 minutes before the start of the race, and the tension is palpable. Just enough time for a final nervous smoke before the action begins. Don gave Ned a little nudge, and they headed for the exit. But just as the men are about to step outside, the world seems to freeze somehow, and reality is suspended. Bursting through the door comes a masked man brandishing a very large gun. "All of you mugs down on the fucking floor, now!" shouted the robber. Everyone did as they were told, save for Ned, who was frozen to the spot, his face contorted in terror. "Ned, get down, mate," said Don from the floor. Ned snapped out of it and hit the deck next to his friend. The robber now focused his attention on the 3 cashiers, ordering them to fill up the bin bag he'd brought in with cash. The silent alarm had already been triggered. A punter, not a regular, chose now to speak up, perhaps made braver by the obvious skinful he'd had. "What's your game, pal? You think you can just swagger in here and ruin everyone's fun? Why don't you do us all a favour and..." The mouthy punter was stopped dead in his tracks by the rattle of gunfire into the ceiling. People clasped their hands to their heads. The robber then uttered in a strident fashion, "We don't need no heroes here. No heroes. No one gets hurt." How cliché, thought Ned. A quiet rage was building in Don. Who did this cocky little shit think he was? Don was frightened like everyone else, yes, but through the fear and anger, Don saw a golden opportunity, a chance to show all these in here and the wider world what sort of a man Don Brass was. A real man. A man with big, swinging, hairy bollocks. In years gone by, possibly while stumbling home from the local boozer, Don had imagined himself as a have-a-go hero, jumping in to save the day, maybe saving some unsuspecting kiddie from the clutches of an evil paedophile, or running down some junky, handbag-snatching scumbag on the street. My, how the ladies would be impressed. "Jesus Christ, I'm scared," Ned whispered, more to himself, but Don heard his mate. "Worry ye not, Neddy," Don whispered back. "I'm going to have this little prick." Don was done thinking. Thinking was poison in this kind of do-or-die situation. The robber had his bag of swag and looked just about ready to make his getaway. He smiled, a smug grin, and looked like he was about to say something when Don rose to his feet, let out an almighty primal scream, and charged, full speed, at the now shocked-looking criminal. Don smashed the masked man with a spear into the guts that any serious rugby player would have been proud of. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. Then the robber lay groaning. Shock and silence dominated the room for what couldn't have been more than 30 seconds before the cops stormed the place, arresting the malefactor and reassuring the punters. No round of applause for Don, who was in kind of a shocked daze, much like the rest of the crowd. Did I just do that? Did that just happen? Don asked himself. "Come on, big man," said Ned, in a kindly tone uncharacteristic for him. "Let's have a smoke." The two friends stepped back outside, both still trembling, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. This was a Tuesday like no other. A moment of unbridled joy filled Don, only to be struck down by the horror which now dawned. The attacker, now unmasked, sat dejected in the back of the police car. He looked up and mouthed the words, "Sorry, Dad," as the vehicle slowly pulled away.